I'm Joanna Greene, and on this edition of MTA's Commuter Connections, we'll show you what MTA is doing to keep public transit moving during the sometimes challenging winter weather season. In observance of Black History Month, we'll look at the historic Buffalo Soldiers and answer your customer questions and concerns in our Ask the MTA segment, all here in MTA's Commuter Connections. Welcome to MTA's Commuter Connections. For this edition, we're on location at the Civil War Museum in downtown Baltimore, where an important part of America's history is on display. At this museum, you'll find many aspects of the Civil War chronicled, including the important part African American troops played in the war effort. This contribution was surely noticed as 16 months after the end of the Civil War, an act of Congress authorized the establishment of 2 cavalry regiments comprised totally of quote-unquote colored troops. These courageous men, who went on to serve their country with honor and distinction, were given the name Buffalo Soldiers. In observance of Black History Month, we're joined by the founder of the Baltimore chapter of the Buffalo Soldiers Reenactment Group, Houston Wedlock, for some insight into the part these men played in history. Welcome to Commuter Connections, Mr. Wedlock.
Thank you.
I have to tell you, it's a pleasure to have you here, and you'd be surprised to know that many folks don't even know who the Buffalo Soldiers were. So can you tell us a little bit about them?
Yeah, the Buffalo Soldiers was a very important part of our history. When Congress had the act back in 1866, well, it was originally the act was supposed to bring 2 black cavalry regiments and 2 additional white cavalry regiments, which would have 10 cavalry regiments, and then 45 infantry regiments, which we got 4 black infantry regiments during the same time.
That's amazing.
Right. And each one of the cavalry regiments had around 1,200 men to start off with in those regiments, 12 troops of each regiment. And the infantry regiments with 12 companies at the same time.
That's amazing.
And later on in 1869, they took the infantry regiments and cut them back to the 24th and the 25th Infantry Regiments, 2 infantry regiments.
Now, how did they get this name, Buffalo Soldiers?
In 1867, the Troop E of the 10th Cavalry was patrolling in Salinas, Kansas. And at the time, they was attacked by Native Americans, and these guys just lit into them and rode like, you know, and they originally started calling them wild buffaloes.
Okay.
And later on, the term become Buffalo Soldiers. It was the Native American Cheyenne tribe.
Now, what wars did the Buffalo Soldiers fight in?
They fought in the Indian Wars from 1866 till 1891. Then they fought in the Spanish-American War in 1898.
Now, what were they best known for, though, throughout the wars?
What they was best known for, their ability to fight.
Wow.
Right. But not only were they fighters, they was builders.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the telegraph lines, railroads, forts was built by these men.
So it had to have been very tough on them to deal with the racism in the times and to still be soldiers. What did they say, historic accounts say their lives were like?
It was tough on these men, but you can imagine these men coming out of slavery, most of them. And a lot of them were Civil War veterans that went on to become in. But they had a chance to be somebody.
Wow, and to prove themselves, I guess.
To prove themselves, to make $13 a month.
Wow.
And when you go back and do research on them, you find some very interesting stories about why they came and why so many of them stayed so long.
But how did they perform under that kind of pressure? This was a segregated times. I mean, it was unlike the segregation that we saw in the 60s and the 50s. These were very stark times. How did they perform?
They performed excellent, better than any other regiments in the West. You hear a lot about the 7th Cavalry and some of the other regiments, but these men set a record that no other cavalry regiment in the West
That's amazing.
Really.
And in
they
those
was
times.
all over the West.
Now, what would you say, how long they existed? Because, I mean, we still see the groups that come around now that talk about it and keep the history alive, but how long were the Buffalo Soldiers essentially around?
The cavalry regiment from 1866 to 1944.
Wow.
And the last infantry regiment that fought in the Korean War was the 24th in 1951.
So that was the most recent, all the way up to 1951.
1951.
Now
right.
tell us about the work of the Baltimore chapter of the Buffalo Soldiers. What do you all do in keeping the legacy and the memory of this organization alive? How do you do that?
Well, we initially formed the chapter once we found out that we had a Medal of Honor recipients from Baltimore County and PG County.
Okay.
So we had a big ceremony back in 1995 for First Sergeant Augustus Wally.
Okay.
And after we seen what the people wanted, especially in Ricestown, I suggested the rest of the members, let's form a chapter.
Now, how many people are in your particular troop?
Right now we have 76 people, I think.
76 people.
In our
Wow.
chapter, yeah.
And what type of activities do you all engage in?
We do parades, we do Memorial Day ceremonies, we go to schools, universities, and teach the history of the Buffalo Soldiers. Not only the Buffalo Soldiers, black history, military history.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Now, how do you, I guess to some degree, kind of explain to them the differences between what it was like then to now for new soldiers? I mean, the military is probably one of the places where a lot of African Americans go. How do you talk to them about being thankful and how things have changed?
Well, I'm a veteran myself, and I can explain to them how I felt when I went in the military.
Right.
I went in during the 50s, and there still was a lot of segregation and racism during that time. And it still is today. But when I talk, especially to young people today, they have to overcome it.
Right.
And be the best you could be.
No matter what.
No matter what.
Now, if someone's interested in getting your organization or contacting them and they want you to come out, how do they get in touch with you?
We have a website, and our president, Manny Locke, is here. He'll give out the website and all that. And
can they call you? They can arrange, you all come out for visits and things like that? Schools and other activities?
Yeah.
That sounds great.
They can call it, or they can call our chapter and get us, set up to come out and give presentations.
And you participate in things like parades and other things.
Right.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
So that's really good. You, beyond just coming into the classroom, you guys participate in parades and ceremonies and all of those things.
And we are striving to work with the ROTC here in Baltimore, because I want these kids to know their history. And when you see these kids came out for the Augustus Wally ceremony,
it's
and
inspiring.
see them march down the street with a little chest stuck out a little farther, that makes you feel good.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And we hope you have a wonderful Black History Month.
Well, it's going to be busy.
Thank you. Up next, a look at what the MTA is doing to keep transit moving on winter weather days. Stay with us.